how do you think it's best to kind of like catch the people's, catch their attention in your community to make them aware of what you're doing and how important it is?
I would say first and foremost, if you find your friendly neighborhood scientist and just ask them a single question, they will not shut up. We don't. If you ask us anything about our field, it's done. We are on for ages. We will tell you everything. We are so excited to tell you everything we know. And the beauty of science is that there's always more to know.
And we're live today on another episode of Imagine Fitting In. And my guest today is a Stefanie Green. I noticed that your name's coming up as Steph. You prefer Steph?
Oh, yeah. Steph is fine. Yes.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you, Steph. Heard a lot about you. And usually, as a reminder, I try to remind all my listeners that the podcast is about mentors, healthy lives, and community. And I believe from what I've, our pre-notes that you are definitely a big powerhouse contributing to the community. And I usually kind of start and say, give us this little brief summary of where what kind of hat you wear right now and what's your day like.
I primarily do two things. By profession, I'm actually a microbiologist. I work in a pharmaceutical identification lab. So we test different environmental monitoring of clean rooms and R&D rooms and anything like that for local and actually nationwide businesses, the hospitals and everything. We test the controlled drugs, a lot of bioburden to make sure that the sterility is working out as they do their, go through and do their production of it. Then we do have the capability of identifying everything and basically going through all the FDA, ISO, USP, all that fun stuff. But I did, however, graduate with a degree in environmental biology. And while I would have loved to pursue that, very difficult to get into, I will say right off the bat. And when you're out of college, you kind of just desperately grab for the first thing that comes your way. And it ended up being microbiology. But I was lucky enough that I found, walking in the woods with my dog found another dog. And then we found the dog's people. And
I love it.
That the people ended up being the Rebecca, one of my best friends now. She is the president of the Watershed Coalition. And then I ended up working as a volunteer, going to the meetings and getting more involved in that. And that is where my conservation heart gets to soar, because that's where the community work comes in. And obviously the conservation, working in the watershed, working with the public. So I get to do that in my free time, which is great.
Okay, that's very nice. That's very nice. And I can relate. I can definitely relate to about the dogs, because I used to have an Airedale way back, and the people meeting, right? It's a wonderful community connection, and our animals, right? And there's just like a profound kind of acceptance and just acknowledgement of like, you must be a great human being because you're out here walking your dog early in the morning or giving it its exercise.
And they know how to find the people we need, I think.
Right? Hey, the universe, they send stuff, So that's great. So I'll just go for briefly, so I want to give guests a little bit of insight directly. Like, where were you born? Where do you call home today? And, what was growing up like, and what did your parents do?
I was born in York, Pennsylvania, but grew up, there's a very tiny town outside of York called Dover, Pennsylvania, not to be confused with Delaware. We are much, much smaller than Dover, Delaware. We were the kind of place where when I was in high school, half the kids were riding their tractors to school for the day. Very farmy, very agricultural. Honestly, it was a great school. Everyone will make fun of their schools at some point, but I had a great experience there. Still small town vibes at the end of the day. And eventually it ended up getting out. I went to college at Delaware Valley University, which is in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. So that was my biggest move from there. Well, except for a small move to Mexico for about a year in between there, but that's a later on story.
Okay.
But yeah, I went to Delaware Valley University for my degree in the environmental biology, and lived in Sellersville outside of there. And I now live right outside of the Allentown, Bethlehem area of Pennsylvania,
Okay.
in the Lehigh Valley. Growing up, my mom was a registered nurse. My dad was a biology major turned guidance counselor, slash football coach, slash everything else that he decided to do. And I have one older brother. He's 3 years older than me. And honestly, the best family a girl could ask for. Grew up on equal ground with everybody. We shared responsibilities. There was never, you can't do this or, you have to do that. It was very, I mean, I might be biased, but probably the best I could have asked for. So,
Okay. That's wonderful. Really wonderful. And, from what have your experiences or individuals, or what individuals have have most profoundly shaped your personal values and your life philosophy? Is that your parents and or your any kind of your immediate work life career?
parents for sure, the easy answer. My dad having the science background for himself, I grew up exploring caves, and we would go to one vacation. We went to a farm, and I was dubbed the dirtiest child to ever be there after I played in the stream for about 5 hours and came back covered in mud. Watching the stars and watching storms come in and all of that.
Something just grabbed you.
Yeah, and it's just I thought about going to school for English at first, and I think I lasted a semester before I realized, well, that's just silly. I don't know why I think I'm doing that. And then I switched over to biology. My mom is one of the most giving people that you could ever hope to meet. So I really try to style a lot of that off of her, like what I go forward and trying to give to my family and my community. Got that from her. My brother was the safe one. I was the trouble child.
I can relate.
So I try to, I take from he's the calm. Whenever I would get riled up, he was always my calm.
Okay.
He would bring me back down. And really after that, moving out, I have great friends. I've got friends that I've known since I was 5 years old, and we're still friends to this day.
Oh, sweet.
And it's good to have those people who have obviously shaped it. But as far as professionally, I will say the Rebecca that I mentioned earlier
Yes.
is probably professionally one of my greatest mentors. She has taught me, especially being a woman in science, little tips and tricks on how to approach better and have the confidence that I need and want to be in the professions that I want to be in. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. So you mean, I always ask this during the podcast, like, do you have any memories about what you wanted to be as a kid? So I mean, I can relate to the being in the creek. And here's the thing. My older brother is like a huge outdoor guy, and hunter, and he even did like different forms of all kinds of forms of hunting. And I was fascinated, enjoyed it, but there was something that was like not quite, like it wasn't my complete thing. But I have all these wonderful memories because I'm here in Dayton, Ohio, and we used to live by a creek and all that, and crawdads and fish and all that kind of stuff. So I can relate. So did you have any inklings about, like, when did it come about, like you're really wanting to get into the field you're at, or is it just like happenstance?
I think for the longest time I wanted to be a vet,
Okay.
because I loved animals. Then I learned that you had to kill some animals to learn how to be a vet.
Oh.
And I couldn't. I just knew I couldn't. It was not not a thing. But no, I think, like I said, when I started going and I'm looking at, the schooling system and going, and if I were to be a teacher, and then I saw the beautiful biology major over there, and I'm like, it should have clicked long before probably, but
Okay.
it hit in time at least.
All right. All right. That's nice. I mean, I can, phew. Yeah, that is a what do you call it? A pretty intense requirement. But let's look at it. You are now, loving our fellow man even more with your work in conservation and environment. We'll get more into that. So that's, I was very excited. And one of the reasons why I was very excited to have you on as a guest, and is that my late father, God bless him, he was a out of the box guy. I used to call him the Nutty Professor. My moniker is actually now, it kind of makes sense. I'm a lot like him. My moniker has been for a number of years now, the Balance Professor. So I'm a fitness professional like over 30 years. But getting back to that whole, that time in your life when you're, formed, and then you go down these avenues and you meet all kinds of people, and then all of a sudden you're in this little niche. And like, I know when I found my niche, it was like, whoa, it clicked. So
And it feels good. Feels good when it clicks.
right. And it's almost like that search. You have to believe in the search, in terms of, man, you think, and you just have to, I guess the best definition of like when you call it like luck, you know what I mean? Like if you feel lucky, like you're where you need to be and doing what,
Yeah.
it was like the best definition of luck I ever heard was very simple. It was preparation with opportunity. And if you're loving what you do and your heart's in it, you're going to make that effort to stick with it and go for it. And
Yep.
that energy is it's not toxic. It's actually vibrant. And it's like that the universe brings, right? She probably brought Rebecca, right? And all that just meant
Yep.
to be, just like we're here today talking. And my dad's contributions was big Greenpeace. And he actually, this is something for you. There's a Popular Science magazine published way back, and he learned how and did build a solar furnace in our backyard in about 1970, which was like, in Ohio. So this is giving you an idea, like I'm a lot like my father, and he's thinking out of the box, right? And one of my guests recently said like, oh, Greg, I can tell you can never be put in a box. And so, a little bit of a rebel type thing, or like, kind of like, what is that, right? Is it curiosity? And like, wait,
Right.
everything around me right now is not quite enough. There's got to be something more than this,
And so let's find it. Let's explore
Right,
it.
right. So, is Rebecca, has she been like a really primary mentor in your life? Did you have any other people that got you, or she's been like top grade fuel right now?
She's been top grade fuel. I do have a cousin I'm very, very close with now, that I would absolutely say has inspired me for many things, and helped me through. She's an incredibly hard worker, and also kicks ass at everything she does, and definitely try to emulate her. Um, and I mean, those are the ones that stick out the most. As far as top mentors,
Yep.
again, I have wonderful communities around me, and they help in and of their own way, but I can't list every single one of them because we only have like 45 minutes,
Yeah,
and
right,
there's too
yeah.
many people.
You wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to forget anybody, right?
Right. Be like, oh, and also,
So bringing that up, I just have to do a shout out to Josh and Brittany. So thank you, Josh and Brittany.
Britt, I will say she's gonna love this one. I discovered her back in intermediate school. She was wearing a Powerpuff Girl watch. Shout out to that watch that has survived many, many years now and is in my possession at this point. But I literally jumped on her desk. She was a new transplant from our nemesis school, by the way. Jumped on her desk and said, "I love the Powerpuff Girls," and we have been best friends ever since. So
That's so sweet. And
I've traveled to Japan with her.
oh,
We've
nice.
traveled through Vegas. We've done all kinds of stuff.
Adventures, right?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. And so like you meant, into your bio, you consider yourself an environmentalist, kind of conservationist. What is the best way, you know, um, what is the best way for like an individual or community to be involved in conservation? And, I believe that at this time right now, it's kind of bubbling up at the top in terms of like the critical essence of our nature, our world around us, not only just as interacting with each other, but really getting details and understanding that science is key for us to have information. It's always like the scientist is always trying to discover, right? It never ends. So I'm fascinated by the fact that, not fascinated, but I'm really excited about this new push, and I'm seeing a lot more, and I'm sure you've seen it a lot more through social media and just in the news in general, about getting down to details in our environment, where we live in our environment. So, how do you think it's best to kind of like catch their attention in your community to make them aware of what you're doing and how important it is?
I would say first and foremost, if you find your friendly neighborhood scientist and just ask them a single question, they will not shut up. We don't. If you ask us anything about our field, it's done. We are on for ages. We will tell you everything. We are so excited to tell you everything we know. And the beauty of science is that there's always more to know, and everything is shifting and changing, but what is there is still there. So, don't be afraid to talk to, anyway, you can reach out. You can reach out to, there's conservation districts set up in each county. There are, even going as far as like the EPA and anything like that, there are people to talk to that are more than happy to inform you on all kinds of things. But really, my biggest thing would be to say, stay local. Going broader tends to be a little overwhelming, especially when you're first walking into it.
Right. I can only
And as much
imagine.
as we want to save our national parks, and that's not to say, I mean, listen, I go to the protests, I go to the rallies, I do that. But my concentration will always stay local, because the support that you get local is what builds up. If I, as the watershed conservationist, I can say you have that ripple that goes when you throw a single stone into a pond, right?
Love
And
it.
that is what has to go out. So if you are that stone in your local community, and it is shockingly easy, if you just put in uh, different organizations, if you want to find, there's master gardeners, watershed stewards, and I know this is obviously different state to state, but go to find your local newspaper and see who's got things going on there. There are always people who are looking volunteers with the Parks and Rec community, and then that would hook you up with everything that flows into it. I always joke around, really, the environmental community is quite incestuous at the end of it all. Everyone knows everybody. You can have emailed someone for a year and a half and never seen this person, but they're sitting right beside you at a meeting one day, because everyone appears. I talked to a gentleman the other day who's working on getting protections for open spaces in his county, or his township, and it was just naming off of, okay, have you talked to this person? Oh yeah, I know that person. And okay, so this person's going to work and they do this. And it's like, oh, I've heard it, and it just all intertwines together.
Nice.
And, you don't have to be, I have people in my organization who they're either retired or they're bankers or they are, medical specialists. And, there are people there, you don't need a specialty in what you're looking for, but there are groups that want to nurture that inspiration you have to help them and get you out with the events, even something as simple as planting trees for a day. I mean, it's it gets you in there.
Those two wonderful nuggets. I love your analogy of the ripple. So thank you. I'm always looking for what I call nuggets of insights where those ripples, that's the ripple analogy. And, you suggesting, right, that, hey, listen, everybody contribute. Like you said, I'm sure the scientists are passionate, excited, local. That's where it really comes down to the, rubber hits the road, and to have some local change and get awareness and that appreciation of how we are of the earth and the earth, right? We are all kind of energies colliding, so to speak. I heard this wonderful thing, I believe it was on social media, where a guy mentioned, I think it was Eckhart Tolle, and he said, when you almost obsess about trying to describe, your life, like if I self-describe my life, what is my life? It's like, you are life, and
Yeah.
we are all life, and it's just this energy bumping into each other, and how much can we, you know, not only coexist, but actually just almost integrate, right? We're almost kind of like bumping and fusing
Right.
together. And that's
You
what,
want
like,
that symbiotic relationship where
exactly.
we have to give and take at this, at the same time, but you can't take too much or there's nothing left. It's
Because the way I look at it is that, we're fusing together just to know each other. And that, obviously my efforts here are to inspire young lives specifically. And there's no age that you can't mentor or you can't be mentored. And so thank you for those two, the ripple, and, realizing that you can contact people and they will, guide you and get you involved, and you can be a huge support in your local community. So that's beautiful. Um, so now, so far, like, what have you found is the most difficult thing in conversation, conservation outreach work?
um the public. I say that as nicely as possible. um I I joke around with some people, and I don't know if you watched Parks and Rec before, but for anyone who has watched Parks and Rec, you have a sitcom based on conservation in the Parks and Rec department. And I have to tell people that, most sitcoms, they try to go above and beyond to make it as ridiculous as possible. Real life working with some of these people is actually worse than that. Um, it is shocking sometimes how much a tree can offend somebody. And now, luckily, this is all few and far between. I will say that there are obviously much more volunteers than there are naysayers, but the ones that are, they are downright angry sometimes, and it's been an absolute challenge, even more so than, trying to go through the red tape of bureaucracy and all that. We can talk to those people. We've gone to the borough meetings. We do all that kind of stuff and talk to the townships, and I've worked with the grants now, and I'm sure other people have a lot more experience as well. But yeah, when it comes down to actually getting out there, and we can talk and try to educate as much as we want, but there are some people who they just don't want it. Um, and it's very difficult to try to change their mind on that. And I know, it usually there's something else going on with them, that they're not mad at us.
Hey,
They're
listen,
not mad at this tree I just planted.
listen. How
They,
how old are you, Steph?
oh gosh, 38.
Okay, well, I've got you by some years, but I'll tell you something. You have an insight that, just mentioning, like, right, people carry around more than they realize. And that energy, sometimes, I hate to say this, but they get to a point where the best feeling they can find or easiest thing to access is actually trying to shut somebody else down of their passions, or like just kind of put a halt. So,
Yeah.
to put a halt to a conversation is one thing, but to, it's like, I think I've been mentioning this lately about, you know, can we just remember the word just as in terms of like a civil level, just kindness. And and this energy that we have and how I don't know how it came about. There's multiple factors we know. But if, a huge level of kindness, and it seems so ridiculous to say, but at this point is almost like it's not saying anything, because we are overwhelmed by opinions, but very few actions. And this is where you are a standout, young lady, because you are in a field, right? That is obviously, everybody's got opinions, and it shouldn't really be contentious about, do you know the quality of water that your child is drinking? The
Yes.
air air breathing? And to have a, what do you call it? An effort and a passionate, heartfelt effort to actually contribute to your local community. And it's kind of like, how everybody gets so caught up with the frustration of politics and this organized whatever government's supposed to take care of us. It's like the same thing, like, okay, stand up and go do something, right? There's only so long. So it gets to a point where just in general, I think the level of kindness and you doing pretty good is, you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of simple, old school. And I think most people can relate to that. But I don't want to get all, so down I'm a very optimistic guy. There's the only reason why I'm here is spending my time and dedicating my time to try to inspire young lives, is to say, I know it's kind of crazy right now and it shouldn't be like this. It's not. And most people know it shouldn't be like this. So, again, through the environment and getting out and putting your feet in the grass and opening it, getting some sunshine every day. I mean, what is more precious than that? And it reminds us that energy of us. So, what have you been your greatest successes so far to date? And have you had any like setbacks, or we consider failures, but because you're out there doing it. What's going on?
I think one of my greatest ones, and especially because, as you're saying, like the youth are the youths, if I are truly, I mean, literally our future at this point. Um, and it is, getting a hold of them. There are some incredible things that have just in my area of, especially outreach into the inner city schools to be able to provide them with parks. And actually, there's been a mental health push at one of the inner city schools here to get the kids out and the parents
Yes.
so that they can connect together. And it's just a beautiful thing to see that focus on the kids. And so one of my greatest prides that I have here, a few years back, we went into a school. The first session that we did during a class was we told them why we were going to be making nesting boxes. And they all promptly fell asleep because no one wants to actually listen to any of that when you're in, I think they were sophomores, which is fair. And they actually brought in a special ed class to sit on that as well. But the second session, we had kits, and the kids were able to build these nesting boxes. So they got into groups of 3 or 4. Some of them used power tools for the first time in their lives. Everything was there. We basically just went around. We let them do all of it on their own so that they were able to build these nesting boxes and put them together. Obviously, went around and helped where needed. And you can just see them coming to life with this. Like, they are building something and they are doing something. And our third session, because the school is right across from one of the parks in my jurisdiction, I'll call it. So the third session, we had dug the holes for them, and then we went over with the kids and installed these bird boxes. I made cupcakes. We made a whole little day of it. They had been able, they had taken like Sharpies and stuff and signed them and like drew on them. And they were so excited by this point of time that they had volunteered to then do all of the monitoring of these bird boxes. It was to establish bluebird nests. So you have to go through, and basically once a week you go through, you see if any nests are being built, and you make sure that it's bluebirds and not, say, sparrows or something like that.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Um, and they did it for the rest of the year. They went out every single week. They kept a spreadsheet of it, and they were truly involved. And to this day, you can walk through that park, and there's a whole line of their nesting boxes that are up there with their names and all their little drawings on it of what led to a very successful bluebird nesting season. Um, and it was just seeing them be able to be a part of it and get their hands on it and really dig in. Just it was such an incredible thing to see. Yeah,
That's
it is.
thank you. Steph, that's a major nugget, because I will tell you that, you know, I have to give a quick shout out to my brother Gary Jankowski and his cohort Steve Staub, and they run an organization called extremestem.org in Ohio here. And I actually had my podcast that's running right now is actually a woman from Pittsburgh who brought her children. They were in a national competition of the
Nice.
battle bots,
Oh my
and
God,
it's
I love
about
battle bots.
hands on, right, and teamwork. And the most important thing is they don't use their phones. They're
Yep.
down. They're working with each other. They're building things. And guess what? What a nugget, Steph, that we have to remind everybody that listens here, that we've been talking about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. And we need to simplify our consumerism and make practical stuff hands-on and get the kids. Not everybody's college bound, right? And you give
No.
that sense of purpose early. I would say, as kind of jokingly, but kind of seriously, but when you mentioned sophomores, the bird nest, if they were more like in fifth grade or fourth grade, I'm sure their eyes would pop open more in terms of like, oh, nature, birds and stuff. But I understand. I understand. So
You go through so many classes,
right.
you don't want to hear people talk nearly as much, but
But yeah, like you said, right? Hands-on doing things, building. And I'm sure you're familiar with the 3 C's of communication, cooperation, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, problem solving.
yep.
Getting together and doing stuff. And that, I mean, obviously, you solo scientists have these beautiful national, communities of these efforts that you're collaborating, like kind of like, symbiotically or connected to the universe, right? And then we all benefit from that work. And when it really goes haywire, something's really happened in terms of, water, whatever, we go crazy. Well, why am I doing that? Well, you guys are doing fantastic work. And obviously in the schools, the sooner the better.
Yeah.
So, what challenges have you faced in building or contributing to the community? I mean, have you had any experiences, you know, that feel like make you kind of like, man, what am I doing and why am I not being appreciated?
There is sometimes the difficulty of finding enough volunteers. Um, we were actually joking around at our coalition meeting last night. So there's 13 of us kind of sub-organizations under the umbrella of the Watershed Coalition of the Lehigh Valley, and that's obviously just in my area here. So I'm the president of one of them. There are 12 others. And no, I'm not saying we fight for our volunteers. Obviously, you have each territory has its own one, but we all face the same thing of we can create an event and we can say, okay, we need to go knock out some invasive knotweed, which is a very big one around here. Um, and you will create the date and we have everything set, and two people show up and they're the same two people that are always there, and they're super great helpers, but everyone's going to get burnt out at a certain point. And the other challenge being getting younger people involved, because a lot of them are the people who are older. We're dealing with 50, 60, 70-year-olds, and they are strong and wonderful, but there's a certain point where I can't be asking a 70-year-old to climb up a truck to throw something away.
Right.
So outreach is probably the hardest that we see. And it's trying to find the outlets that are going to help us, you know, what age can we do? Okay, contacting scout troops has been becoming a big thing. And obviously going into the schools as much as we can. There is actually a program that was integrated into the school, the Watershed. Oh, now I'm gonna blank on what the I stands for. WIP though. But it actually allows students in intermediate and high school to pursue basically curriculum that is more watershed focused. So it's
Right.
still their regular, but that is getting them involved and that is helping. But if you're going for the youth, then you have to make sure the parents are available. And of course, everyone's going to have their sporting events and the parents, they only get one weekend to relax and I get it. I do. So it's keeping people engaged and finding the people. But to that note, and as I think you said earlier, I I can see, and I believe a lot of my fellow conservationists here can see that it is growing, and the appreciation for what we do is growing, and the desire for people to get involved is growing. Even just last month, we got a newest member into our watershed because she's just very excited to be a part of something who is, a group that is going to go out and it's things that she was passionate about, and now she has that outlet. And so there are people around. It's finding them that sometimes is a little difficult, but
Sure.
when you get them, they're good.
Well,
That's probably the biggest challenge.
I will just add to that because I, I, I'm going to do a little spitballing here. Okay. And I tend to talk a lot as well because my brother and his friend were working on trying to get more volunteers and more awareness. And it's key to get the parents involved. Now, I just spitballing, like when you have those volunteers that always show up and maybe they're older, maybe the conversation can be, hey, can you come this particular day when I'm going to this school to present? And we, either it's bird boxes or just like a, maybe more brief presentations of conservation opportunities. And maybe that volunteer would be open and you guys empower them a little bit with like after school, encouraging any child that is interested if it's, I don't know, the whole thing availability and working parents and stuff like after school or a special weekend. I don't know how that operates in school systems, but to try to be able to have those volunteers that you talk about that are always showing up and to magnify their outreach and empowering them with like, say they go with you and you present as a scientist and conservationist and like they have this day and then, you encourage some literature or something information to get to the parents to say here here's these other additional opportunities for the kids to after school to learn about more about what their efforts are. And I'm just spitballing in terms of
Right.
trying to create an electricity of energy and if you spark the child, right, if a kid goes home and he's got something or she's got something on her mind that she can't get off her mind, she's going to drive her parents most likely nuts if she's determined or he's determined. And then, oh, maybe we can go there one day and when that volunteer's there, and heck, maybe it's even just after work hours for a half an hour, 45 minutes
Yep.
to turn them on and educate the parent on seeing like how much that volunteer and through you, how you can empower them to just create some energy and excitement about their being, because obviously these little ones, when you get that little bug and encourage them, sometimes
Yep.
those little and they change, right, night and day. Like, oh, it's Tuesday, oh, I'm different into something else, oh, I'm into something else. I'm sure that's the case, but you never know what presents itself later in life in terms of inspiring youth. And again, I think you hit on the nail, right? Parents, to get them more involved with their schools and understanding what's going on. And again, I know it's it's just a process getting in the schools and spending time and going to speak and make time for you guys like that, in your efforts. So how do you approach setting goals and achieving goals right now with now you mentioned, now you do one thing during the day, and then it's kind of, you do double duty, don't you? You're so passionate.
Pretty much.
So what do what motivates you to stay on track?
Probably, a little bit of spite, a little bit of stubbornness. If you ask my husband, a lot of stubbornness. And just, I mean, you're into the mental health. I'm sure I can just say this, that there is always going to be a little part of me, probably a bigger part of me, that thinks I'm never doing enough. So it's very different. I know.
Hey, listen, girl. Listen, absolutely. I relate to that 100%. I think we're some of the really lucky ones when you have that kind of problem. You feel me?
It's true.
As opposed to the opposite. We're just trying to find a neutral, happy ground because, yes, I was dismissing to my friend. I said, yes, I have another interview this morning. And I'm always nervous. And somebody told me something wonderful about being nervous when you're doing anything. That means you really care.
Yeah.
That means you really are in it. And it's so important to you. You don't want to mess up. You want to do your absolute best.
As good as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that because passion is basically what gets me through. And the hope and optimism that some of mine can shed off on other people and just kind of like at least get them to neutral. I'm not trying to change the world, but I'm just trying to make a little, what I consider a contribution, So what roles? I mean, what roles does gratitude play a role in your life? And how do you practice it?
I will always be grateful for everything I have. I know I am very lucky in life, and I won't pretend that I haven't gone through, mostly self-implemented issues. I married an illegal immigrant when I was 21 and ended up moving to Mexico with him. That got me a whole lot of experience, and I hold on to, I'm not going to say it was all bad. The family values that are down there are incredible. I can make a really good empanada now.
I love it. I love it.
I've always had a sense of adventure. And so that's something that I try to bring into it. I've traveled a good bit and I try to bring a lot of what I've seen into everything that I do. Thinking outside the box, as we were talking about earlier, just being able to see that and incorporate that into every role I play, which, and I will always try to go above and beyond for the people because I believe the people in my life are truly worth everything that I can give them. It's definitely, learning a balance, of taking care of yourself is definitely something. So I'm also working on that, but
yeah, I will tell you a few things. Number one, when you're 21, right? Don't beat yourself up. Your passionate spirit of decision making. Probably, I know male brains are not formed until 25, and so again, you can't beat yourself up, but because your intention was pure and loving and going down there, and you just mentioning that values, right? That's huge, and that's just one of the biggest things I love about that. The Latin culture, but specifically Mexico and most Latin cultures, they have such high values. They work really hard, but guess what?
Absolutely.
Guess what? They know how to celebrate life and appreciate life, and it's more the identity of around the family, as opposed to like in America and other modern civilizations of other countries. Like, I had a theologian on just recently, and he's from India, over in India. And he said that most African cultures, Indian cultures, and Latin cultures, the whole context of existence is around the family,
Yeah.
right? And in America and France and other developed nations, it's more about the individual. And, God bless America. I love America, right? We get to practice free will, manifest destiny. We get to, right, choose where we go, how we go, and be involved, right? And it's a beautiful thing. But I think what you said, the values, right? The values are just priceless. And it's almost like we have to step back and like, how much do you value the earth? How much do you value your neighbor? How much, right?
Yeah.
Let's get out of our own heads and kind of take a pause and realize like, wow, maybe I should buy a dog and go walk my dog so I can meet some people in more relaxed environment, They're beautiful creatures.
Take them
But
to a dog park and watch them have so much fun.
right. And again, when a couple dogs will bump into each other and like, okay, all right, we know those two are not supposed to get together. Like, keep them separate. There's a big analogy, right? Okay, let's
Right.
avoid that. Can you share a story where you had to maybe unlearn something and to grow personally or professionally? Like, did you get something in your head?
Yes. I'll try to put this as concisely as possible. Well, I just literally said I don't think I'm ever going to be good enough. I also sometimes feel like I'm better than people. I will admit that. I will admit that here. Uh,
There's nothing
and-
there. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with knowing that you are strong and capable. And, I think I agree with you because go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry. I'll finish up.
I think and the site might actually be exactly where you're going. What you have to learn in that or unlearn that it's not all ego. It is sometimes allowed to just be confidence. Um, and that shift has been something that I've tried to work on where, okay, I'm not just coming down on people. I am allowed to be confident in what I am doing and admit to myself that I know what I am doing, which is sometimes very scary because that also means then that I have to be in charge of things. But yeah, that is something that I feel it was unlearned, but also then redirected, I guess is the best way to put it, of just changing that train of thought and allowing myself to exist as I am.
Listen, so I've got a few years on you. Okay. You're 100% correct. Do you know it's just taken about 40 some years for me to completely discount when someone thinks I'm uh, egotistical because I'm actually knowledgeable and confident about what I'm talking about. So remember that term, ignorance is bliss?
Yeah.
It's one thing to um, tout and kind of like, I have to use this word, bullshit your way into a conversation or say a statement that you think is going to uh, correct your negativity or correct your ignorance because I've gotten over the fact that, like I mentioned before, right? I'm nervous because I really care about this.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to a point now, and I experience the same thing at your age, and it's almost like a constant struggle that comes in like a wave that you're like, okay, wow, is people gonna do I know what I'm doing? Are they gonna believe me, or am I, worthy of this, me spouting this energy out or these thoughts and ideas? And like, yes, you are. And it's when you know what you know, And especially when, like, I know when you get together with your your peers, right? When you talk mutually and you guys connect, you're like, oh, you feel so great because you're like, what do you call it? You're acknowledging your
Yeah.
power, your existence, your energy, your flow, your ability to be there and communicate. I have the same relationship with artists. I'm so comfortable, you know, and I
But
think,
it lets you get out of your head at that moment. I mean, I will admit, even coming into this, because obviously I listened to, as soon as they told me about you, I went and listened to your podcast. I, work and had the headset in, and I'm thinking, why would he want to talk to me? That, you know, do I have enough, or would I overtalk? Would I oversell anything? It really went back and forth, that nice little roller coaster of, well, I'm not this guy. I've lived in Pennsylvania and that's it. But then it does come down to, I can talk about this stuff, and it is important. It is something that I've been trying to do for years now. So that is what you have to allow yourself to do, is get out of that little safety zone that you've got, and get out there.
I mean, you are encapsulating and defining it in a way, and then I would say you're an environmentalist for sure. And in the environment, when we talk about this energy, it goes back to like my life and life. You are life. You are along with me, right? We're just bumping into each other. We're out there, and it's cascading. There is no we get ourselves trapped in our own head, in our own, right? We go inward, and that's what a couple of things, between social media and technology, and lack of communication, and not working with your hands and talking with people and sharing, like we just talked about, sharing with our peers, on a regular basis. Do you know the number one factor of a long life? When they say like quit smoking, eat healthy, exercise and healthy is lower than like quitting smoking and something else. But do you know what the very top is? Is having social connections. The number one issue for a secret to a long life is having social connections and engage in your community.
Which
And
makes sense, because I believe that's one of the biggest fears after people retire. If they don't continue to get out there, their life expectancy actually drops a good bit, if I remember correctly.
that's why your volunteers, right? The ones that get it are showing up every time. And so how many more of those people that are their friends, and I'm sure they talk about it all the time, and maybe their friends it drives their friends crazy, and they're trying to recruit them or something, because it's like, hey, this is fun. I see, right? I see you not doing something, right? The whole thing about, oh, you're retired. Do you have any hobbies? No. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you spend your time doing? I think you're like me. We're from Midwest, right? Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We like to work. We,
Yes.
we keep busy. We like to do things, hands-on, do things. There's a reason why we were the hub of the Industrial Revolution. And from your steel mills to the amount of inventions that go on in my city, right? Do you know that it's an interesting fact? The second most inventions ever created as a total hub, the first one behind the second, right? Behind Benjamin Franklin, is my city of Dayton, Ohio. Right? And combine that with your manufacturing, right? The steel, all the things that we put things together. It's just a reminder. What are we hearing? Oh, America's like, we're not, there's no jobs, blah, blah, blah. And we're making inroads to try to, hopefully go that route, to get more hands-on, more mentors, right? Kids coming out of school. There's all kinds
Yep.
of mentor programs that are going on in local colleges now. And this is what we're trying to push, both through the extremestem.org. And, this is the reason my podcast. I mean, mentors, I have had so many mentors, Steph. And I continually have right now, probably 25. Most of them are my clients that are various ages, younger and older, that teach me something about myself every day. And so this is valuable. Community is valuable. And I think, when you say, right, you mentioned, when I asked you about gratitude and grateful, you mentioned all the people near and dear, which makes you vibrant and alive. And you know what? It's just like, for me, don't ever give up, right? Don't ever give up putting yourself out there and trying to have that next new connection where you click, like Rebecca, right?
Yeah.
It's out there. The universe is continuing. Don't get yourself out of a bubble. And that, again, that Eckhart Tolle, that line was just, it's so stuck with me recently here. And I had heard about him way before even Oprah had mentioned him and had him on as a guest. And I read his writings, but a simple line. It's not, think about my life. You are life, right? We are colliding. You can't stop. You can't stop us because we are a being with a conscience, you know, from, obviously evolutionary standpoints where we're having this conversation and we can talk about the potential to when we collide, right? I mean, after we have this conversation, I'm sure your head's going to percolate. My head's going to percolate.
Oh, I
Like,
already got a new plan on outreach because of you.
okay,
So,
okay. And so awesome. And so how else? I'm going to go percolate some more about like, hey, how many more people can I get from Steph? How much can we do can we do some kind of collaborative effort to go into a national level and have have a multiple guest on my program? So it's great. So let's keep bumping into each other, so to speak. You know what I
yes,
mean? It's awesome.
I have a large watershed community that would be more than happy. We have a conference in October to get back to the basics of the watershed, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I said, the other organizations are always working. We do the stream stomps, the macro hunts, and rain barrel workshops, and everything. So there's lots to do out there.
Nice, nice. And so that's exciting. So what advice would you give someone, you know, trying to find their place in or fit in within the environmental work? Where would you, is there any particular resources or what kind of advice, what's important for the, new young ones or anybody that wants to get involved?
I mean, I think, and as you were talking, this did hit me because there are days when I just want to, I just want to walk away. It's a bad day. Everything seems futile. And I know we all have that on everything that we pursue. And obviously the given answer is you can't give up. Just stick that out. Just get through that one dark part and you get to the other side. And it is extremely satisfying on the other side. There is so much good, and the joy of what I would say of conservation and the environmental work is that you then get to see your efforts and the efforts of those around you for years to come. I also sit on the Parks and Recreation Open Space Advisory Board here in my county, and we pass along different grants that allows, we've seen parks that are now more handicapped and autistic friendly. We see trails being developed all around the area. The trail system that we have in this area is, my husband and I will walk the dogs along the trails, every weekend, and there's always something new to see. And that then stimulates the businesses along those trails. So then you have these local businesses that are able to get engaged. We do something called a tap talk, which was our take on a TED talk, where we'll go to local breweries, distilleries, cafes, and we have someone come and talk about watershed, anything. We've had microplastics, we've had landscaping, we've had ceremonial stone landscaping, and getting people out there and there's just so many fun and different things. If you don't like getting dirty, that's okay. You don't have to.
Right.
There is, just go and learn and at least support and be there to know that, okay, like here's a way that you can reduce your plastic use. Here's a way, it is all these smaller steps that some people, they think, "Oh, it's just it's a little thing." It is. And you need those little things. You need to build them up, and it is the small things that will eventually matter in the end. So yeah, my best advice is just don't let yourself overthink going out there because we're just happy to see people. We love being able to connect. We love being able to do anything. We'll do guided walks. We'll do, there's just such a plethora of things that you can do. And I think there's something for everybody that will still keep you engaged in your community, in your environment. Because industry is great. I'm not putting down industry at all, but at a certain point, you want to see a big, beautiful tree in your backyard and not a warehouse. And, that's what we keep fighting for. That's what we will continue to spread these words so that we can preserve a beautiful natural world for everyone to live in.
Nice. I think what came to mind is that, we have to believe, right, that our lives matter, right? And when it matters, when the matter of our beings collide with one another, and don't underestimate your potential contribution once you collide with this or that effort or outreach or little contribution, because it all adds up to the big picture, like, universe we live in, boom, right? Try to put your mind around that, but then get down to the earth, get down to your country, your community, and it's that people matter, right? And, any efforts are good efforts. And so thank you so much for the insight, the work you do. It's fabulous to keep that pushing forward. And we have these platforms now that we call podcasts that are allowing us to empower us to really supercharge us, communicate, and rev it up. So I hope to only rev up and percolate more ideas for you. So, but you've definitely for me, and I'll look forward to potentially figuring out maybe have you back around and we can talk about maybe one of more of your successes, or we can talk about something that maybe we can shoot around. So, I'm always percolating.
Yes, always things to do.
Yeah, right? All right, Steph. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. All the best to you, and believe you matter, right? So
yeah, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the podcast in general. It has been a joy to listen to. I really enjoyed a lot of your guests there. So
love it. We're trying to inspire lives, young and old. So
we need it sometimes. We need that inspiration.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Till next time, kids. Bye-bye.
Professor!